We have more sad news out of the United States. There is another deadly plane crash. Earlier this week, we talked about a plane crash in Washington, D.C. that killed 67 people. Now we are talking about a plane crash in Philadelphia that has killed 6 people and injured at least 19 people on the ground. If this is your first time here, my name is Brent. I have been teaching English in the United States for over 20 years. And on this channel, we watch news clips together, and then I come back and teach all of the difficult terms, the English idioms, and those pesky English phrasal verbs. Before we get too far, because there could be some questions in the comments, I am wearing a hat right here. This is a flag of the state I live in, Maine. And earlier this week, I covered a story, a tragic story about what is going on in the Congo right now. And I have a sweatshirt with the Congolese flag on it. I am a big fan of flags. Let's get right into it. We will watch a news clip from CNN, and then I will come back and teach all of those difficult words.
Good evening, I'm Abby Phillip, and we begin with breaking news tonight. Another plane has crashed in another American city, and this time it is Philadelphia. I want to reset what we know at this hour. We are told a twin-engine Medevac jet took off from a local airport en route to Missouri. That plane reached 1,600 feet after takeoff before plunging 11,000 feet per minute.
And maybe the first thing we should talk about is, where did this crash happen? It happened in the state of Pennsylvania. That might be hard to say, Pennsylvania. And it happened in a city we call Philadelphia. Philadelphia. And later on in this news clip, you will hear a man who has a strong Philadelphia accent. You will also hear a man that has a Ukrainian accent, but his English is great. For each of the terms, I will have a picture, I will have the official definition, and I will use it in a sentence. Philadelphia is a large city in the state of Pennsylvania, USA. Here is the sentence. The Medevac jet, don't worry, we will talk about what a Medevac jet is. The Medevac jet crashed shortly after taking off from Northeast Philadelphia Airport. Yes, the airport's name is Northeast Philadelphia Airport, and in that sentence, I used an English phrasal verb, taking off. We will talk more about that in just a minute. A little more about Philadelphia. Philadelphia is the country's 6th biggest city and is located in the state of Pennsylvania. Is that difficult to say? Pennsylvania. Before we get too far, if you are enjoying this English lesson, would you mind hitting that like button? It will tell YouTube to show it to other English learners. And if this is your first time here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you never miss another English lesson. Abby, the news reporter we see, she says that they need to reset. I really didn't have a great picture for this, so let's talk about the definition and the sentence. If you reset something, it means you start something over or return it to its original state. I think she did this because this news report was live. Just in case somebody was joining late, she wanted to reset the situation, like start over, so everyone would get the same information. Let's use it in a sentence. Abby wanted to reset the situation for anyone just joining the live newscast.
Good evening, I'm Abby Phillip, and we begin with breaking news tonight. Another plane has crashed in another American city, and this time it is Philadelphia. I want to reset what we know at this hour. We are told a twin-engine Medevac jet took off from a local airport en route to Missouri. That plane reached 1,600 feet after takeoff before plunging 11,000 feet per minute. 6 people were on board, including a child patient.
Medevac jet. We talked about it earlier, but let's get the official definition. A medical evacuation aircraft used to transport patients. So if you have an evacuation, it means you need to leave a place quickly. Medevac. That's where the word comes from. Medical and evacuation. The Medevac jet was carrying a young patient back to Mexico when it crashed. Yeah, and what makes this story even more tragic is that one of the 6 victims was a young child. Where I live, we don't have medevac jets, but we do have life flights, and those are helicopters that can go pick up a person if they need medical attention really quickly. I have used this English phrasal verb. They use the English phrasal verb in the newscast, took off. It's the past tense of take off. Let's get the definition. It's when an aircraft, that is an airplane or a helicopter, leaves the ground and begins to fly. The plane took off from Northeast Philadelphia Airport en route to Missouri. We'll talk about en route and Missouri next. En route, it means on the way to a destination. A destination is a place where you want to be. The aircraft was en route to Missouri before heading to its final destination in Mexico. I had to change that green color. My eyes are not that great. It was hard for me to read. This should be better. Let's talk about the state of Missouri. You can see it on the map in the red. Let's get the definition. A state in the central United States. The flight plan included a stop in Missouri before continuing to Mexico. Mexico was the final destination of this medevac jet.
That plane reached 1,600 feet after takeoff before plunging 11,000 feet per minute. 6 people were on board, including a child patient. Here is another look at the crash as it happened. You saw there the jet plummeting almost like a missile out of the sky before an explosion. It landed in a busy section of the city near a mall.
These next 2 words, plunging and plummeting, mean almost the same thing. Plunging, it means falling or moving downward quickly. Witnesses, we will talk about witnesses in a minute, but witnesses saw the plane plunging from the sky moments before the crash. Maybe with that sentence, you can figure out what witnesses are without ever hearing the word before. In English, we call that context. So maybe you don't know the word, but you know all of the other words around it. So you can figure out what that unknown word means. We just did plunging. Let's do plummeting. Dropping suddenly and steeply. Very sad to hear that a plane plummeted out of the sky. The aircraft was plummeting rapidly or quickly before it hit the ground.
You saw there the jet plummeting almost like a missile out of the sky before an explosion. It landed in a busy section of the city near a mall.
They mentioned a busy section of the city. I didn't know if you would know what that meant, so let's talk about it. A crowded or active area. The plane crashed into a busy section of Philadelphia near a shopping mall. It's really amazing that more people on the ground didn't get hurt. You can see from the footage of the crash, there is quite an explosion.
It's unknown whether there are any casualties on the ground. Here, though, is how one witness described the scene.
I was in shock. I'm still in shock. Like, this is insane. Why can this happen? And before that, to be honest, in my mind, I thought, like, what if the rocket would, because I'm from Ukraine, right? And there's war. there's always rockets coming in and stuff like that. And then I see like things flying. Like, no way, the war started again? You know, and you say, you never know.
Instead of saying people who were hurt, you might hear casualties. Casualties are people who are injured or killed in an accident. The crash resulted in multiple casualties, including those on board and those on the ground. By on board, they mean people who were on the plane. I told you we would talk about what a witness is. It is a person that sees an event happen. A witness described hearing a loud explosion as the plane crashed. So we just talked about the noun form of this word. Let's talk about the verb form. It's very close to the noun. Many people witnessed the plane crash, so it just means they saw it.
Like, this is insane. This, why can this and before that, to be honest, in my mind I thought, like, what if the rocket would because I'm from Ukraine, right, and there's war.
Insane. Native English speakers love to use this word. An insane situation is a situation that is extremely shocking or crazy. I can't imagine people at that mall seeing that crash. It must have been insane. The aftermath of the crash was an insane scene of destruction and chaos. We have talked about chaos in past English lessons. The man from Ukraine actually has some great English, and he uses a phrase that a lot of native English speakers say. To be honest, a phrase used to express that you really believe something. To be honest, I think you can learn English. You are doing a great job. To be honest, I never expected something like this to happen in our neighborhood. To be honest is so common, you might see the acronym TBH. If you are reading a text message from a native English speaker, you might see TBH. Now, they did not say this in the newscast, but I thought that man from Ukraine might be having a flashback. Let's talk about what a flashback is. It's a sudden, very clear memory of a past event. It's not always bad, but it usually is. The man from Ukraine may have been having a flashback to the war he witnessed. And that is very common for soldiers who have experienced war. When they get back home, maybe they hear a loud noise and it makes them think they are back in the war again. In the United States, around the 4th of July, a lot of Americans like to explode fireworks. That can be very triggering for people who have served in war. They might have flashbacks, thinking they were back on the warfield.
Here's the conversation also that we have now obtained from the air traffic control tower. Listen.
Medevac Med Service Northeast Tower. Medevac Med Service 056 Northeast Tower. You on frequency?
We have a lost aircraft. We're not exactly sure what happened, so we're trying to figure it out.
Let's go straight to Philadelphia, where Councilman Mike Driscoll, who represents that area, is with us now. Councilman, thank you very much for joining us. I know this is a very active scene. There was just a briefing with other city officials, but I want to ask you directly about that plane, 6 people on it, according to the company.
Let's talk about the verb obtained. It means got or acquired something. CNN obtained video of the crash from the local police. Let's take a look at this picture. I don't know what is in that envelope, but maybe it's a college degree. The person in the picture might have obtained their college degree. Be careful when you use obtained. It's very official. You wouldn't obtain some milk from the store. We have a big term here, air traffic control tower. It's a facility at an airport that manages aircraft movements. The pilots did not talk with the air traffic control tower before the crash. Frequency. We have a couple different ways in English we use frequency, but in the newscast, they used it like this: a specific radio wave used for conversation. The plane lost contact on the designated radio frequency shortly after takeoff. The air traffic controllers, those are the people who work in those towers, they kept calling out to the people on the jet, but they never heard back from them. In the newscast, Abby, the reporter, talked to a council person. Let's talk about what a council person is. The member of a city council. So they have something to do with the government of the city, the government of Philadelphia. The local council person addressed the media about the incident.
Let's go straight to Philadelphia, where Councilman Mike Driscoll, who represents that area, is with us now. Councilman, thank you very much for joining us. I know this is a very active scene. There was just a briefing with other city officials, but I want to ask you directly about that plane, 6 people on it, according to the company. Do you believe that there are any survivors on that aircraft?
Well, Abby, I can't say for sure, but it doesn't look good. It's a sad situation we have here in Northeast Philadelphia. We were only celebrating a couple of days ago, our football team success, and now we have this tonight. And it looks like not only the people that won that plane and the person that needed medical help, they seem to be people that were doing the Lord's work. And now we have our first responders out there in mass.
They talk about an active scene in the newscast. Let's define what that is. A location where emergency responders are currently working. If the scene is active, normal, everyday people are not supposed to go there. You might even see crime tape stopping people from going to that active scene. The crash site remained an active scene as investigators examined the area.
We were only celebrating a couple of days ago, our football team success, and now we have this tonight. And now we have our first responders out there in mass. Our governor, our mayor, all doing all they can to not only the folks that were on that plane, but we are afraid there's more casualties on the ground. We don't know yet. It's going to take some time. We have to have some patience. We have to let our first responders do their job.
The man talked about some good news the city had just experienced. Their football team, the Philadelphia Eagles, made it to the biggest football game of the year. We call that football game the Super Bowl. That green helmet with the wings on it, that belongs to the Philadelphia Eagles. The red helmet, those are the Kansas City Chiefs. But the Philadelphia Eagles are a professional American football team based in Philadelphia. I don't think this has happened yet, but it might. Take a look at that sentence. The Philadelphia Eagles expressed condolences to the victims' families. If you express condolences, you say things like, "Oh, I am so sorry you lost a family member. I feel so bad." You are offering your condolences when you say things like that. They talked about something happening en masse. What does that mean? It just means in large numbers. People gathered en masse to pay their respects at the crash site. Now, at the time of this news report, it was still an active scene, so that probably hasn't happened yet, but I bet it will. Do you know the term folks? I know there is an L in it, but we pronounce it like folks. It's just an informal term for people. Many folks in the community are mourning the loss after the accident. And we talked about that spelling of mourning in a past English lesson. It means feeling sad after somebody died.
Abby, there's first responders vehicles moving in and out, whether they're taking them to the hospital or just responding to the homes or to the businesses or to the folks that were actually in the cars when that plane hit that sort of parking lot area. We suspect a lot will be going on as the evening progresses.
And in terms of the fire, our understanding is that the fire is being described as under control. But is there still fire burning? Are there still kind of active parts of this scene that are being dealt with from a fire perspective?
Absolutely. We have a wonderful fire department here. By the way, the first fire department in the United States of America. You know, we have a highly trained first responder unit. And so, yeah, they're putting the fires out. But as you can imagine, there's those tinders that are always active that the first responders and the police have to make sure that they don't become a problem.
We need to talk about patience and patience. They said there was a child patient on that Medevac jet, and patients are people receiving medical treatment. The Medevac jet was transporting patients in need of urgent care. If something is urgent, it needs to be done right now. But this type of patience, they also use this type of patience in the newscast. It means the ability to wait calmly. Investigators asked for the public's patience as they conducted their work. I'm sure family members wanted information right away, but they had to be patient. You need a lot of patience to learn English because it takes a long time. You're still watching this English lesson? It's a long one. I hope it is working for you. Subsequent. This was another one I really couldn't find a good picture for, but let's get the definition. Coming after something else. Like, I'm sure on this channel, there will be subsequent English lessons. This is not the last English lesson on this channel. Subsequent reports that came after, provided more details about the crash. Yeah, in the coming days, we talked about that term a few English lessons ago. In the coming days, we will get even more information about this crash. Residential. You might hear a residential area. It just means where people live. Where businesses are, you might hear that called a commercial area. Let's get a sentence using residential. The plane crashed into a residential area, damaging several homes. But it also crashed near a mall, so it might have crashed near a commercial area too. Again, not a great picture for this, but they talked about facilities. Let's get the definition. Buildings or places that serve a specific purpose. Emergency facilities were set up to assist those affected by the crash.
We suspect a lot will be going on as the evening progresses.
And in terms of the fire, our understanding is that the fire is being described as under control. But is there still fire burning? Are there still kind of active parts of this scene that are being dealt with from a fire perspective?
Absolutely. We have a wonderful fire department here. By the way, the first fire department in the United States of America. You know, we have a highly trained first responder unit. And so, yeah, they're putting the fires out. But as you can imagine, there's those tinders that are always active that the first responders and the police have to make sure that they don't become a problem.
Oh boy. This one can be tough. Suspect. Notice how I pronounce it. Suspect. It means to believe or think something might be true. Investigators suspect that mechanical failure may have caused the crash. Mechanical failure means something in the jet stopped working. That's what they suspect. But a suspect can be a person. The suspect was caught in the bank robbery. A suspect is someone who might have committed a crime. Suspect is the verb, suspect is the noun. Don't you just love how easy English is? Totally kidding. English is pretty hard. I'm glad I learned English as a baby. America's first fire department. According to the guy being interviewed, that council person, he said the first one was in Philadelphia. I asked AI to produce a picture of the first fire department in the United States. It looks like it might be in Philadelphia. America's first fire department was in Philadelphia, and firefighters responded quickly to the crash, or should I say, to the crash site. But in my research, I found that the first fire department that paid people to be firefighters was in Boston. They also talked about tinders in the newscast. Small materials like dry grass or wood used to start a fire. The plane crash ignited tinders in a nearby field, causing a small fire. That was well over 30 English terms. I hope your brain doesn't hurt too much. If it doesn't hurt that much, take a look right down there. We had another plane crash in the United States. Super sad situation. If you want to watch an English lesson about that, I left it right down there. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.